Chapter 17, Black Flash. Nah. First attendance. With the Maximoff twins now unconscious and temporarily neutralized, Gojo turned his attention to the Hulk. A few moments ago, he'd launched the green Goliath skyward. Looking back, however, the spot where Hulk should have landed was empty. Gojo's 6 eyes quickly scanned the horizon, and he located him a green speck, already a considerable distance away, lumbering erratically towards the nearby city. It seemed the combination of Wanda's manipulation and Gojo's own forceful intervention had left the Hulk disoriented, his rage now directionless. Gojo also spotted Tony, a streak of red and gold in his Iron Man suit, rocketing towards the Hulk at full thrust. Gojo sighed. If Tony engaged the Hulk in his current state, especially near a populated area, the collateral damage would be catastrophic. The city would suffer immense destruction, and countless innocent lives would be at risk. For all the cool spectacle it might have made in the movies, the reality of such a battle was grim and terrifying. He looked down at the unconscious twins. He couldn't just leave them here. With a grunt, he effortlessly hoisted Wanda onto one shoulder and Pietro onto the other. Then, he began to run, his speed a blur, heading directly towards the city and the impending confrontation. As he ran, with Tony now a visible dot in the sky above him, Gojo activated his comms. "Hey, Tony," he called out, his voice surprisingly calm despite the speed and the burden he carried. "Leave Hulk drive, Banner to me, you take care of these two." As he spoke, he used blue, gently levitating the unconscious forms of Wanda and Pietro upwards, sending them on a controlled trajectory towards Iron Man. Tony, caught off guard, expertly maneuvered to catch the two enhanced siblings midair, his armor's systems adjusting to the unexpected load. "Hey, Satoru," Tony replied over the comms, his voice strained. "I don't know if you realize, but that's the Hulk down there. He's not some typical monster we can just punch out. He's different, especially now that he's full-blown, off-the-charts angry. Let me support you, at least. We can try to contain him together." Tony could see Gojo below, a rapidly moving blur across the landscape, occasionally warping short distances, leaving a dusty trail in his wake. "Thanks for the offer, Tony," Gojo called back, his voice still steady, "but just get them settled in the Quinjet. Then, with the others, if possible, start evacuating the area. As much as you can, as fast as you can. I'll handle the rest." He paused, a rare note of seriousness in his tone. "I know you and the others, you don't fully trust me. I was found in a Hydra base, after all. I also know you probably think of me as some kind of murderer they put on ice, or maybe some brainwashed experiment with a modified mind." He took a breath. "But just, trust me on this one. Please." Tony was silent for a moment. Every instinct, every protocol, screamed at him not to leave a civilian, even a superpowered one, to face the Hulk alone, especially with a city at stake. He couldn't fully trust Gojo, not yet, not with innocent lives on the line. But there was something in Gojo's voice, a quiet confidence that was hard to ignore. And they were running out of options. "Ah, shit," Tony muttered into his comms, a decision made. "Just don't disappoint me, Satoru. I'm trusting you on this, even though everyone else is probably going to call me crazy. I'll take care of these two, then get started on evac. I've called in Veronica, just in case. For support, if you need it." With that, Iron Man banked sharply, his thrusters flaring, and flew back towards the Quinjet and the rest of the Avengers, carrying the unconscious Maximoff twins. Gojo didn't reply, he just kept moving, a blur across the ground, occasionally warping, closing the distance to the rampaging Hulk and the vulnerable city with incredible speed. The dust kicked up by his passage was the only sign he'd even been there. In the side of the bustling city, blissfully unaware of the green behemoth rapidly approaching, a young Japanese girl was live-streaming her day. Her vlog was a cheerful chronicle of her travels, today focusing on exploring various unique shops, her energetic commentary and interactions with her viewers a constant stream of lighthearted fun. Okay, chat, so many questions about the matcha latte." She giggled, adjusting her tripod as she walked. "It was super yummy. Next stop, that cute little bookstore everyone recommended." Suddenly, her chat feed exploded. A torrent of messages, all variations of, "Get out of there. Run, behind you," flooded her screen, a relentless spamming that cut through her usual playful banter. The vlogger stopped, her smile faltering in confusion. Hey, chat, please don't spam the same thing. She pleaded, a nervous laugh escaping her. Chat, get out of there. Behind you. Run. WTF WTF WTF. No joke, turn around. The bot will block you otherwise. Ah. What behind me? She glanced over her shoulder, seeing nothing but ordinary city life. RUNNNN. Look up. It's in the sky. OMG OMG OMG. Move now. Behind you. Sky sky sky. What is that? Dude behind you. AAAAAAHHHHHHH. This is not a drill. Get out get out get out. Above you. Holy. Run. What are you all saying? There's no one behind me. Her eyes then followed the frantic directions of her viewers. Ah, in the sky. She looked up. Her blood ran cold. A monstrous green figure, impossibly large, was hurtling through the air directly towards her. It would land, or rather crash, almost on top of her in a matter of seconds. She wanted to move, to scream, to run, but her legs were frozen, locked in place by sheer terror. Her phone, still clutched in her hand on its tripod, continued to record, capturing her horrified expression. It's coming. Why are you still standing there? No 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 no. You're gonna die. Move. Just as the Hulk was about to make impact, a figure blurred into existence between the vlogger and the descending giant. It was Gojo. He hadn't stopped the Hulk entirely, the momentum was too great, but he'd shifted his trajectory just enough. The Hulk slammed into the ground a few feet away from the girl, the impact shattering the pavement and sending shockwaves through the street. The vlogger was knocked to the ground, her phone still recording, now aimed erratically upwards. Gojo, standing amidst the cracked concrete, turned to the terrified girl, a disarmingly calm smile on his face. Hey there, he said, as if this were a perfectly normal Tuesday afternoon. Don't worry, he's just a little angry. Having a bit of a tantrum. He then noticed the still recording phone. Oh, you're streaming. Oh, hey chat, how have you all been doing? It's nothing at all to worry about, just a minor disagreement. He then turned back to the Hulk, who was already roaring, rising from the crater, and swinging a massive fist. The punch met Gojo's infinity, stopping dead. Gojo, however, didn't just block. He met the Hulk's raw power with something entirely different. He made a fist, his cursed energy condensing, focusing to an almost impossible degree. Then, he unleashed it, a punch aimed with deadly, precise focus at the Hulk's incoming fist. The moment of impact was different. A flash of black lightning erupted, crackling around the point of contact. For an infinitesimal moment, if one could have looked closely enough, space itself seemed to distort around Gojo's fist. Black flash. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. The Hulk, despite his immense strength and durability, was sent flying backwards, not just pushed, but launched into the sky as if struck by an invisible cannonball. His eyes rolled back in their sockets from the sheer concussive force. Gojo glanced back at the stunned vlogger. Be careful next time, he said, his smile still in place. And chat, don't subscribe, seriously, he then added, a cryptic edge to his voice, and a word of advice for everyone, nothing is encrypted or private anymore. Just a heads up. With that, he warped, vanishing from the street and reappearing high in the sky, directly behind the still airborne Hulk, who was momentarily disoriented from the black flash. A wave of something new, something potent, washed over Gojo. It wasn't just cursed energy, it was a feeling, an understanding. Adrenaline, yes, but more than that. The fog that had somewhat clouded his innate understanding of his cursed energy, of his techniques since waking in this new world, was rapidly clearing. Each black flash was like a key, unlocking deeper pathways, a more profound connection to his power. He was now behind the Hulk, a predatory grin spreading across his face. Sorry, Hulk, he said, his voice laced with a newfound, almost joyful intensity. This might sting a little. Another punch, imbued with that same focused, space-distorting energy. Black lightning arced across the Hulk's broad green back. Space itself seemed to ripple around the impact. The Hulk was blasted downwards, shot from the sky like a meteor. Black flash. Gojo was experiencing an enlightenment, a visceral understanding of his own power, fueled by these perfectly executed black flashes. It wouldn't be wrong to say he was becoming somewhat addicted to the sensation, to the clarity and the raw, unknown adrenaline surging through his system. He warped again, appearing directly in the Hulk's downward path. Before the green giant could crash into the city below, before he could even begin to orient himself from the disorienting impacts and the feeling of being utterly powerless against an invisible force, Gojo met him. Another precise, focused punch, this time to the Hulk's chest. More black lightning, more spatial distortion. The Hulk's mouth flew open, and a spray of green-tinged blood arced through the air. The droplets of Hulk's blood hurtled towards Gojo's face, only to be stopped inches away by his ever-present infinity. A wide, almost feral smile formed on Gojo's face. This is fun. So, how was it? Did you like the chat? More black flashes coming. I will end this fight in next or probably in 2 chapters. After that there won't be any fight for a while. So enjoy. Many readers are asking who is the romance interest. Well, there isn't anyone yet. So you choose and comment the name with a PITQ of GIF of that girl who you want the romance interest to be. We'll see you all in the next Black Flash chapter. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Like it, add to library, creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me. Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 41 comments 0 vote. Chapter 18, X10. Attendances please, and sorry Hulk. Gojo wasn't letting the Hulk touch the ground. He kept the green Goliath suspended in the air, a helpless, raging puppet in a one-sided battle. The Hulk roared in frustration, punching at the empty air, his blows creating thunderous sonic booms. Whenever Gojo warped close, the Hulk would swing with all his might, but his fists would only ever meet the unyielding wall of infinity. The Hulk even tried his signature thunderclap, smashing his massive hands together to create a deafening, destructive shockwave, but the force dissipated harmlessly against Gojo's absolute defense. Frustrated with the lack of progress, Gojo decided to add a little more force. He coated his fist in the vibrant blue energy of his cursed technique and launched a powerful, blue-enhanced punch. It connected with the Hulk midair, not with the space-distorting intensity of a black flash, but with enough concussive, attractive force to send him soaring even higher into the sky. Below, despite Gojo's efforts to contain the battle, some damage was unavoidable. The aftershocks from the Hulk's missed punches and his thunderclap had cracked roads and shattered windows, a testament to the raw power Gojo was effortlessly neutralizing. Now, Gojo decided it was time to land a truly decisive blow. This would be his third black flash, and he intended to make it the most destructive one yet. He would aim it straight at the Hulk's face, coating his fist with blue, condensing his cursed energy, pouring everything he could into this one perfect strike. Without a shred of hesitation, without any thought of potential injury to himself, Gojo warped. He appeared instantly, inches from the Hulk's enraged, suspended face. He pulsed blue to hold the Hulk perfectly still for a fraction of a second, then he unleashed his attack. A precise, focused punch, aimed directly at the Hulk's cheek. Black lightning, more intense than before, erupted. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear. Black flash. The sound was like a crack of doom. A single, massive tooth was knocked clean from the Hulk's mouth, followed by a spray of green blood. The impact was disastrous, for the Hulk. And to top it off, in the same instant, Gojo unleashed a maximum output red. The overwhelming repulsive force, combined with the momentum from the black flash, sent the Hulk flying like a cannonball, out of the city, arcing through the sky, and heading back towards the salvage yard where Gojo had left the 2 unconscious siblings. The Hulk finally landed, crashing back to Earth after being battered left and right in the air. For Gojo, the fight had been more than a simple brawl, it was a profound learning experience. Each perfectly executed black flash was clearing the fog in his mind, deepening his innate understanding of his cursed energy and techniques. He was using one of the planet's most powerful heroes as a whetstone to sharpen his own phenomenal abilities. Even after 3 consecutive black flashes, the Hulk was not unconscious. He lay in the crater he'd made, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked up at the sky from where he'd been so violently ejected, and the red haze of Wanda's influence was beginning to clear from his mind, though not yet completely. A shimmer of warped space, and Gojo was there, standing over him, looking down with a curious expression. "In the mood for a chat now?" Gojo asked, his voice light. "Or are you still feeling some of those red aftereffects in your mind, huh?" In response, Gojo got a powerful, guttural scream and another mighty punch aimed directly at his face. And yet again, it was completely ineffective, stopping inches away thanks to infinity. Gojo chuckled, a genuinely amused sound, as if this was exactly the response he had been hoping for. "Hulk, you have no idea how helpful you've been," he said, a wide, almost manic grin spreading across his face. "And you absolutely have no idea what you're doing for me right now." He readied his fist again, his cursed energy surging, condensing to that perfect, critical point. With blinding speed, he thrashed his fist forward, striking the Hulk squarely in the stomach. Black flash. Gojo, now laughing, was subjecting the Incredible Hulk to the worst, most one-sided beating he had ever received, far worse than any encounter with the military. He was pressing the Hulk down with the invisible weight of his infinity, pinning the giant to the ground so he couldn't even stand. The Hulk threw punch after desperate punch, each one a world-breaking blow, only to have them all stop harmlessly inches from Gojo's smiling face. Black flash. Gojo's fists, crackling with black lightning, rained down on the Hulk's body. What started as a rare phenomenon was now happening with every strike. Each punch was a perfect black flash, driving the Hulk deeper and deeper into the earth. If it were any other hero or villain, they might have begged for mercy, questioning what kind of cruel, unusual punishment this was. But the Hulk only knew rage. He roared with intensifying fury after every blow, only to be met with the sickening impact of another. Black flash. In this moment, the Hulk was not the ferocious, unstoppable beast the internet and media portrayed him as. He was a victim. A tool. He was being used by an impossibly powerful being who was rediscovering his own potential, clearing the fog from his mind by taking full advantage of the Hulk's super regeneration and nigh-indestructible body. The one inflicting this was an utterly insane, utterly joyful Gojo Satoru. Black flash. The smile on Gojo's face was pure, unadulterated ecstasy. It was the look of someone who had forgotten the exhilarating rush of adrenaline in their system and, having finally found it again after a long time, wanted to savor the feeling for as long as humanly possible. Black flash. Tony, in his Iron Man suit, finally flew to the scene, hovering at a safe distance. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. His suit's sensors and advanced zoom capabilities showed him a sight that defied all logic. The Hulk was being, Tony didn't even have a word for it, dominated, toyed with. He could clearly see the face of someone else, Gojo having the time of his life beating the Hulk into the ground. And that terrifying black lightning, it flashed again, and again, and again. Black flash. The last vestiges of Wanda's mental manipulation were being pummeled out of the Hulk, but the planted anger was being replaced by a genuine, even deeper fury. The sheer humiliation of being utterly overpowered by someone so tiny, so seemingly fragile, was infuriating. Yet, all his actions were futile. His mind, battered by the constant, abnormal impacts of space-distorting punches, was growing hazy, fuzzy. Gojo, meanwhile, was completely in the zone, focused on one thing and one thing only, black flashing the living daylights out of his sparring partner. Gojo stopped for a brief moment, a wide, bright grin on his face. "Thanks, Hulk," he said, his voice bright and sincere. And then, with a final, mighty effort, black flash. This last punch drove the Hulk's body even further down. With a final, shuddering groan, the great green beast finally, mercifully, lost consciousness. The ground where he lay was a disaster zone, a massive crater with spider web-like cracks spreading out in all directions. Gojo, breathing a little heavier but still buzzing with energy, calmly tapped his comms. "Hulk has been contained," he announced, his voice cheerful. "Securely." Tony's voice came back, strained and incredulous. "Yeah, Satoru, we can see that." Then, switching to a private channel audible only to the other Avengers, Tony's voice was low and serious. "Hey, guys, please remind me, never to call him, kid, again. Ever. No comments. Here if you like the chapters. Here if you didn't like the chapter. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me, Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 35 comments 0 vote. Chapter 19, Terrorist, Rewrite. Just as in the title it is a rewrite of Chapter 19. Please answer some one question at the end so that the story can move forward. Inside the Quinjet, the atmosphere was heavy with exhaustion and unease. Captain America sat stoically, his gaze distant, clearly replaying whatever vision Wanda had forced upon him. Natasha was quiet, her usual composure slightly frayed. Only Clint Barton seemed relatively unscathed. Having experienced Loki's mind control, he'd recognized the signs and had managed to momentarily incapacitate Wanda with a well-aimed taser arrow before she could fully ensnare him. Been there, done that, got the mind control t-shirt, he'd muttered grimly. Not doing it again. Wanda and Pietro lay unconscious on the metal floor of the Quinjet, securely bound. Wanda's dark hair was splayed around her head, and even in their inert state, they radiated an aura of dangerous potential. The Quinjet's ramp lowered, and Tony landed with a metallic clang, his Iron Man armor still on. He scanned the jet, his optics lingering on the bound twins, ensuring they were secure. Moments later, Gojo strolled in, Bruce Banner now fully reverted from the Hulk, though looking utterly drained, slung over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Gojo gently slumped Banner into a seat, where the physicist immediately fell into a deep, exhausted sleep. "So," Gojo announced, dusting off his hands, "we didn't manage to stop Ultron from getting whatever he was after at the salvage yard. Bad news. But," he continued, a cheerful note in his voice, "don't be too disheartened. One of his other brilliant plans, releasing the Hulk on an unsuspecting city, was successfully resolved. And we captured the two little min-messers who were making a hash of your mental well-being. Good news, right?" Tony, already retracting his helmet, looked agitated. "Let's get back to the tower, now," he said, his voice urgent. "We have to figure out what Ultron is really after. What does he want that vibranium for? Because whatever it is, I guarantee it's not going to be healthy for any of us." Gojo gestured towards the cockpit. "Should I fly this thing? I've been picking up a few things." Clint, stretching, shook his head. "Nah, I'm in good condition. Heard you took care of the Hulk pretty decisively, Satoru. You're probably tired. Just rest. I've got this." He moved to the pilot's seat. As the Quinjet lifted off and began its journey back to New York, Tony initiated a secure video call with Maria Hill at Avengers Tower. Surprisingly, Ultron hadn't made another attempt on the scepter while they were gone. Perhaps the risk of Thor taking it to Asgard for safekeeping was too high, or maybe, as Gojo suspected, Ultron had a different, more intricate plan already in motion. "Hill," Tony said, his face appearing on the main screen in the jet, "anything new? Any news we absolutely need to know right now?" Maria Hill's image flickered, her expression serious. "Yes, actually," she replied, her voice crisp. "There is. The government, specifically, certain high-ranking military officials, are formally demanding that Gojo Satoru be handed over to their custody." A stunned silence fell over the Quinjet. Everyone awake, including Gojo, looked shocked. Gojo blinked behind his round sunglasses. "Ah, what did I do?" Gojo asked, genuinely bewildered. "Did I accidentally kidnap the US president while I was out getting pastries? Because that feels like the kind of news you should have started with, Hill." Pretty big headline. Tony, though visibly surprised, adopted a serious, almost challenging tone. "And the reason for this request?" he asked, his voice tight. "Even though they have to know that request is going absolutely nowhere." Maria Hill sighed, a weary expression on her face as she manipulated her datapad. "They were sent an anonymous package," she explained. "It contained this." A video feed flickered onto the main screen in the Quinjet. It was satellite imagery, surprisingly clear, focused on the African city Gojo had just saved. The footage showed the Hulk rampaging, then Gojo's intervention. It captured Gojo effortlessly teleporting, blocking the Hulk's attacks, and then, the black flashes. One after another, the video showed Gojo appearing, striking with that terrifying black lightning, and sending the Hulk reeling. Steve watched, his brow furrowed. "What's wrong with this, exactly?" he asked, genuinely confused. "He stopped the Hulk. He prevented him from destroying a city and causing who knows how many casualties. That looks like a win to me." Maria Hill didn't stop the video there. She let it play on, showing the later part of the fight. Gojo, with that unnerving, almost ecstatic smile, pinning the Hulk down, raining black flash after black flash upon the helpless giant. It wasn't just subduing the Hulk, it looked like a gleeful, one-sided demolition. The sheer, almost casual power on display was breathtaking, and a little terrifying. When the video finally ended, Maria switched the display. And now, see this, she said. Folders and documents appeared on the screen. Avengers internal files on Gojo Satoru. It was everything they, or rather, Jarvis, before his demise, had compiled. His retrieval from the Hydra base in Sokovia, the ice capsule, his unknown origins, his incredible abilities. There were also speculative notes. Potential Hydra experiment, unknown age appears teenage, possible psychological instability due to prolonged stasis experimentation, risk of brainwashing, sleeper agent. All their initial cautious assessments and worst-case scenarios were laid bare. Whoever sent this package to the government, Maria Hill continued, her voice grave, wants him locked up, or at the very least, bogged down in so much red tape and investigation that he won't be able to go anywhere or do anything. They want him neutralized, one way or another. She paused. And what forced the government to act so decisively, what really lit a fire under them, is the combination of his unknown, potentially Hydra-linked background, and the undeniable fact that he took down the Hulk. Not just stopped him, but dominated him, easily and one-sided. So, what's their official line? Tony asked, his voice dangerously calm. They view him as an unregistered, unvetted asset of immense power with potential ties to enemy organizations, Maria stated. They're framing it as a national security threat. Unofficially, they want him locked down. They want to put him back in whatever icebox he came from, or, more likely, they want to study him. Dissect his abilities, figure out what makes him tick. They believe he's an experiment, and if they can research his body, his powers, they think they can replicate it. Create a new breed of supersoldier, far better and more powerful than anything they've had before. A cold anger settled in Steve Rogers' eyes. Better, he said, his voice quiet but laced with steel. So they'll experiment on kids now. Just so they can make more supersoldiers, more weapons. He looked directly at Maria Hill through the screen. Maria, I think you already know the response we're going to give them. If they want Satoru, if they want to lay a hand on him, they'll have to go through every single one of us here first. The unspoken promise of a fight the government was unlikely to win, hung heavy in the air. So, this was a rewrite of Chapter 19. Many were saying that it felt like forced plot or something, or like that it didn't change anything, so here it is. Question: was rewrite 1 was good or the original Chapter 19? Rewrite Chapter 19. Original Chapter 19. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Like it. Add to library. Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 33 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 20. Threat. Attendance please. Maria Hill let out a weary sigh, the kind that spoke of bureaucratic battles and impossible choices. She knew, even before she spoke, what the Avengers' reaction would be. It's not just about his power, Captain, she said, her voice tired. There's also a recording, a section of that same satellite footage, that they're using to paint him as mentally unstable, potentially dangerous to civilians, a ticking time bomb. She clicked a few buttons on her console, and the video feed on the Quinjet screen jumped to a different segment. The perspective was still the satellite view of Gojo versus the Hulk. But this time, the focus wasn't just on the power, it was on Gojo himself. The feed zoomed in, and though grainy, it captured the wide, almost manic grin on Gojo's face as he rained down black flash after black flash. His laughter, though inaudible from this distance, was implied by his joyful, almost unhinged expression as he dominated the Hulk. Insane Gojo pic gif here. From this third-person perspective, detached and clinical, Gojo didn't look like a hero subduing a threat. He looked like an unstable individual reveling in destruction, focused solely on obliterating his target with terrifying glee, consequences be damned. Maria Hill paused the video. This, she said, her voice flat, is what the government and military are using as their primary excuse. They're spinning it to portray Satoru as a potential threat, classifying him as even more dangerous and unpredictable than the Hulk. I don't need to remind you what the official stance on Dr. Banner is, or how the military reacted the last time the Hulk went on a rampage. He bent tanks and scattered elite soldiers like they were made of paper. She continued, they've always wanted the Hulk locked up, contained. All they ever needed was a justifiable reason, a public incident. The Hulk, fully enraged by Wanda's powers, was going to be that reason. But since Satoru stopped that, effectively and very visibly, the government and military have now shifted their focus. They're pushing hard to get Gojo Satoru locked up, citing him as the greater, more volatile unknown. Words are already circulating that high-ranking military commands are petitioning the president for full authorization to apprehend him. Tony, who had been listening with a thunderous expression, finally spoke, his voice laced with anger. Are you telling me that the President of the United States might actually give, or has already given, the military full permission to go after Satoru? To try and lock him up? It's not decided yet, Maria Hill clarified, but the proposal is definitely on the table, gaining traction. And think about it from their perspective, however skewed. If the US government believes they can get super soldiers with Satoru's level of power, individuals who can topple the Hulk like he's nothing, even if it means sacrificing a bit of humanity or ethics, I think they'll seriously consider it. You all know how desperate, how reactive, the global powers have become since Loki tore a hole in space and an alien army poured through. And now, with Ultron on the loose. Steve's jaw tightened. But that doesn't give them the right to experiment on human beings, Maria, just because the world outside is dangerous. If they do that, what's the difference between Hydra Nazis and us? The difference, Captain, Maria Hill stated, her voice devoid of judgment, just stating a perceived reality, is that the US will claim it's for the protection of their country, for the safety of the Earth. Hydra and the Nazis used such power for destruction and world domination. Intent, they'll argue, is everything. She then looked directly at Steve, her gaze pointed. And Captain, that distinction, that willingness to use extraordinary means for what was perceived as the greater good, that's also the reason you're here. The reason you're alive. Steve's eyes widened, just a fraction. For a fleeting second, it seemed he had forgotten, or perhaps, had compartmentalized the fact that he himself was the product of a government experiment, a super soldier program. He looked down, a flicker of guilt, or perhaps just uncomfortable recognition, crossing his face. But it's different, he said, his voice somewhat hesitant. That was wartime, and if it wasn't me, someone else would have been chosen for that experiment. I volunteered. The distinction felt important to him, even if the underlying principle of using human experimentation to create weapons was uncomfortably similar. Well, Cap, Maria Hill said, her voice carrying a note of weary pragmatism, what the government is claiming, or will claim, is that they are doing this to protect their country, their people, from threats that are far bigger than some war between humans. Existential threats. That's their justification. Tony let out a short, humorless laugh, the kind that was more a bark of derision. The government has been on hold, just waiting for a good enough reason to try and lock up the Hulk for years, he scoffed. It seems they're somewhat mistaken about their own capabilities. They can't contain something they don't even remotely understand. The Hulk can tear through whatever they think is their best weapon like it's wet paper. It's pretty delusional of them to believe they could ever truly contain him in the first place. He continued, pacing the confined space of the Quinjet. I think their strategies and their thinking are going in the complete opposite direction of evolving. If they can't even catch or contain the Hulk, how in the blazes do they think they're going to catch someone who beat the Hulk one-sided without breaking a sweat? Gojo, who had been listening with a detached sort of amusement, finally spoke up. I think you're all overreacting, or maybe overthinking this matter just a little, he said, his tone light. What you should be focusing on is Ultron, not some petty government squabble where they want to catch me based on a video in which, by the way, I saved a city. And, just out of curiosity, how exactly are they planning to catch me? When I can just, he made a vague teleporting gesture. Yeah, he's right, Tony conceded, running a hand through his already messy hair. Why are we getting so worked up about something that's practically impossible in the first place? We need to focus on Ultron. He's the immediate, world-ending threat. Clint, ever the practical one, stated the obvious. So, what do we do now? Maria Hill's image on the screen looked grim. If you don't want to deal with official authorities breathing down your necks at the exact same time you're trying to stop Ultron, I suggest you don't come back to the tower. Not right now, not until one of these problems gets resolved. Because the military is, let's just say they're hellbent on getting their hands on Satoru. And they will absolutely use Ultron, and the chaos he causes, as an example of why they need assets like him under their control. She paused, her voice dropping. And I'm sorry to say this, but even the Avengers initiative is on a very tightrope right now. If this situation with Satoru escalates further, if there's a public confrontation, they might push to disband you. Tony looked frustrated. So, what now? If we can't go back to the tower, I don't have access to my main labs, my best equipment, the resources I need to track Ultron effectively to figure out what he's planning. Well, for now, Maria Hill advised, I'd strongly recommend staying in stealth mode. Stay away from here, stay away from any known Avengers facilities, or anywhere the government can easily find you. And Satoru, she looked directly at where she presumed Gojo was. As soon as the official order passes, which could be any minute now, you will be classified as a hostile entity, a terrorist, within US jurisdiction. So, run and hide, Tony said, a bitter edge to his voice. From the very government we're trying to protect. Until we can resolve one of these major problems and focus on the other one fully, yes, Tony, Maria replied, her voice firm. That's the only viable option right now. Fight Ultron, or fight your own government. You can't do both effectively at the same time. Tony let out a frustrated sigh. Neither do we have the resources for that. Clint Barton, ever the steady hand, spoke up from the cockpit. Let me handle the jet. You all should try and get some rest. It's going to be a few hours long ride too, wherever we're going next. Gojo, still lounging comfortably, offered a suggestion. You know, you could just leave me behind. Drop me off somewhere, I can manage on my own. Less trouble for you guys. Steve, his gaze thoughtful, interjected. The one who sent that video, and Satoru's file, to the government. Ultron, Tony said with certainty. No doubt about it, he wants to tear us apart, sow discord, make us fight among ourselves while he enacts his grand plan. And no, Satoru, we are not leaving you behind. He shot Gojo a look. It's too dangerous to leave you behind for the other side, of course. We don't want you actually fighting the entire US government and ending up all over the news as public enemy number one. That's a PR nightmare even I can't spin. Dr. Banner, now awake and wrapped in a thick blanket, his voice still hoarse, added, Tony's right, Satoru. Sticking together, for now, is probably best. Gojo just mused, a slight smile playing on his lips as he looked out the Quinjet window. You guys are just overthinking things too much when it comes to me. You should be focused on Ultron. He's the real party. So, how was it? Now not only Avengers are going to face Ultron but Uktron have incited another matter in Govet and Gojo. While the news and feed was real in the reports too. I think Ultron may have edited or influenced the reports a little bit in that like Gojo is a successful experiment of Hydra and can be replicated. From my POV military won't stop even if Gojo is with Avengers. Next would be they going to safe house. And talk between twins and Avengers. And as always thanks for Demikateru, loaded demigod for suggestions. And join my Discord for discussion if you like. Or about sharing your thoughts. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Like it, add to library, creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me. Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 46 comments 0 vote. Chapter 21. Stark Destruction. Attendance please. The gentle hum of the Quinjet was the first thing Wanda Maximoff registered as consciousness slowly returned. Her head throbbed, and a disorienting fog clung to her thoughts. As her eyes fluttered open, the first thing she saw was Gojo Satoru, leaning over her slightly, a pair of dark round sunglasses obscuring his eyes, but a distinct, almost teasing smile playing on his lips. Gojo chuckled softly. Welcome back to the land of the conscious, he said, his voice light. Don't try to do anything, red, or any other color witchy stuff in here, okay? Because, you see, I have some red of my own, and I don't think your brother over there would appreciate it if things got messy. That is, of course, assuming you could even get out of these restraints with your one-legged brother in tow. Wanda's gaze flickered to Pietro, still unconscious beside her, his leg clearly immobilized. She then looked back at Gojo, a flicker of defiance in her eyes, but she remained still. We got caught, huh? She said, her voice a little hoarse. And by some half-baked Hydra experiment, no less. A bitter smile touched her lips as her eyes drifted towards Tony Stark, who was sitting across the jet, his face etched with distress, his gaze distant and troubled. But it is also somewhat soothing to see that our efforts are bearing some fruit. Look at him. Tony, hearing her voice, flinched almost imperceptibly. He slowly turned his head, his hands clenching together in his lap. Why? He asked, his voice strained, raw with an emotion Wanda couldn't quite decipher. Was it anger, confusion, or genuine pain? Why do you hate the Avengers? No, to be precise, why do you hate me that much? What did I personally do to you two? He looked from Wanda to her unconscious brother. Because if it's something from before I became Iron Man, I admit, I was a total asshole back then. But I don't remember ever going near where you lived, or having any direct interaction with you. So much hate, enough that you volunteered yourselves for HYDRA's human experimentation. Wanda let out a short, dry laugh, as if he'd told a particularly unfunny joke. So, you still don't even know us, even now? After everything? She shook her head. Well, why would you? You've killed so many. We would be like a needle in a haystack of victims bearing your name, wouldn't we? Her voice hardened, filled with a cold, simmering rage. Destroying other people's lives as you please, all while getting yourself a shiny title like hero from the public and the media. And now, she gestured vaguely, you've created something else in your own image. A little sad that your new creation won't listen to you either, isn't it? Tony's composure finally cracked. He stood up, his voice rising, thick with anger and a defensive pain. You put those things in my head. He accused, pointing a trembling finger at her. You forced me to act. You showed me something I shouldn't have seen. And even if I could go back, knowing what I know now, I would still try to do the same thing, just in a different way. Wanda met his furious gaze with a chilling calmness. I just showed you something that your own mind wanted to show you, Stark, she said, her voice soft but cutting. A glimpse of your deepest fears. That wasn't me you saw in those visions. That was you. If you have someone to blame for your nightmares, blame yourself. Steve Rogers, who had been listening with a growing sense of disapproval, finally spoke, his voice firm and steady. And whatever happened, Wanda, he said, his gaze fixed on her, do you think that gave you the right to play with other people's lives? You used your powers to send the Hulk on a rampage towards a city. Do you have any idea what the casualties would have been if Satoru hadn't been there to stop him? And stop calling him an experiment. He's a person. Wanda fell silent for a moment, her gaze dropping. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, less defiant. It was never the plan for him to reach the city, she admitted. The plan was to tear you all apart by controlling the Hulk, to turn your own weapon against you. But I wasn't able to do that fully because someone interrupted in the middle. Her eyes flickered towards Gojo. Gojo let out an exaggerated sigh. So, what, now that's my fault? He said, a playful pout on his face. Must feel pretty good, blaming your reckless actions on someone as innocent and helpful as me. Wanda shifted slightly in her restraints, a subtle movement that didn't go unnoticed. Bruce Banner, who had been observing her warily from his seat beside Tony, wrapped in a thick blanket, tensed. Please don't try to use your powers in here, Wanda, Bruce said, his voice low and strained, a hint of the Hulk's growl creeping in. Even if you somehow got the chance, I absolutely do not have to remind you that the Hulk is just one bad mood, one wrong thought, away from tearing you both apart. And he's not feeling particularly charitable right now. Gojo clapped his hands together lightly. So, if this whole soap opera is over, I would just like to say that I didn't enjoy it one bit. Especially the part where it almost got blamed on me. He looked around at the twins. Though, seriously, what do we do with them now? We could just, open the ramp and nudge them out. I doubt they'd survive the fall from this height. A stunned silence filled the Quinjet. Captain America, Tony, Natasha, even Clint Barton, who was piloting, turned to stare at Gojo with wide, incredulous eyes. Gojo quickly held up his hands. Just kidding, he said, a wide grin spreading across his face. It was just to get all your attention. Lighten the mood a little. So, to be honest, what do we do with them? I say, this time seriously, we break her brother's other leg so he definitely won't be running anywhere. Then we keep him as a very convincing hostage if she tries to do any more of her voodoo min thingies. Tony, ignoring Gojo's unconventional suggestions for now, looked at him with a serious expression. Care to share what exactly we saw in that satellite video, Satoru? The part with you and the Hulk. Because whatever that was, it looked hellish. And definitely not normal. Gojo shifted uncomfortably, a rare flicker of something like embarrassment crossing his features. Well, that's a little embarrassing, to be honest, he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. But I was just excited. A little bit more than usual. I was on a major adrenaline rush. Maybe a little high on the power, or something like that. It had been a while. Before anyone could press Gojo further, Clint Barton, his face a mask of cold. He was angry, but he didn't show it to his face. What is it, Clint snarled, his voice dangerously low, that you two exactly want? Wanda, despite Clint's menacing gaze and the cold voice tone, met his gaze with a chilling smile of her own. Anger, is it? She said, her voice a taunting whisper. Well, I think it must be pretty obvious by now what we want, is Stark's destruction. And everything this Merchant of Death stands for. A.N. So, how was it? Filler guilty as charged. I wanted a talk between them so bad so I did it. Hope you liked it. The FIC is doing pretty good and that's why there are daily chapters. So, thank you self for that. And as always thanks for Demikateru, loaded demigod for suggestions. And a question, should Hawkeye go to his house in this or another secret super base of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Hawkeye home, S.H.I.E.L.D. base. And join my Discord for discussion if you like. Or about sharing your thoughts. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me, Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 29 comments 0 vote. Chapter 22, Secret Agents. Attendance please, and a review is in order for now I think. So if you can give a review to his FIC. After Wanda's venomous declaration of wanting Stark's destruction, Gojo tilted his head, a thoughtful, almost whimsical expression on his face. Man, that is some pretty deep hate, he commented. Though, it's a bit like, I just brought a fish home to cook. Who's going to know, or even care, where I caught that fish, or if I just bought it from the market? Everyone stared at him, bewildered. The analogy, if it was one, seemed to hang in the air, completely out of place. Gojo sighed dramatically. Really, no one understood the meaning? He asked, looking around at their blank faces. Hint, I said it in a riddle. You guys are like some bunch of unintelligent beings who just can't appreciate my sophisticated humor. He then turned his attention back to Wanda. What I mean is, care to tell us where you bought the fish from? Ah, sorry, I mean, what's the actual, detailed reason for your intense hatred of Tony? The specific ingredients of this hate stew you're cooking. And so, Wanda, perhaps seeing no other option, or perhaps fueled by a desire to justify her actions, began to recount her story. She spoke of her childhood in Sokovia, of the bombs that fell, of the terror, of the loss of her parents, and of the unexploded Stark Industries shell that had trapped her and Pietro for days, a constant, terrifying reminder of their vulnerability and the source of their pain. As she finished, a heavy silence filled the Quinjet. Most of the Avengers, while sympathetic to the trauma she and her brother had endured, couldn't help but arrive at a similar, unspoken conclusion. Her reasoning was, to put it mildly, flawed. Natasha, who had been listening intently, her expression unreadable, was the first to voice it. So, after hearing everything, what I understand is, you hate Tony Stark because his last name was printed on a bombshell that, by your own account, didn't explode and kill you. Gojo let out a genuine laugh this time, a short, sharp bark of amusement. Okay, that is a flawed story, he said, shaking his head. Please tell me you cut out most of the important parts in there. You want to destroy him, and everything he stands for, because his last name was on a bomb. That's kinda, damn, he snapped his fingers, trying to find the word. I have a word on my tongue, but it's just not coming to me right now. And then you let Hydra experiment on you. So, maybe they also made you somewhat dumb enough to actually want to kill the car manufacturer instead of going after the person who was actually driving the car and caused the accident. Is that the logic we're working with here? Wanda bolted upright as much as her restraints would allow, her eyes blazing with crimson energy, though, surprisingly, she didn't unleash her powers. She was in control, but just barely. You don't know what happened to us. She hissed, her voice trembling with fury. What we experienced, how we survived, so don't you dare laugh at it. Gojo, unfazed, stood up, walked over to her, and squatted down so he was at her eye level. Before she could react further, he gently tapped 2 fingers to her forehead. Her eyes fluttered, the red glow faded, and her head slumped back against the metal floor as she lost consciousness once more. He stood up, dusting off his hands. She was getting angry, Gojo stated simply, giving his reason for his actions. And as exciting as another round with the Hulk might be, I really don't want to see him make an appearance in here. Confined spaces, you know. Tony, who had been listening to Wanda's story with a complicated mix of guilt and frustration, finally spoke. Hydra, he said, his voice heavy. They brainwashed them, from the moment they got their hands on those 2, probably when they were just kids, after the bombing. They twisted their grief, their fear. He looked at the unconscious twins. So, I think whatever we say or do right now, it won't give them what they think they want to hear. Hydra just wanted to use them, to turn them into weapons for their cause. And they used me as the fuel for their hatred and loss. Steve added firmly, that doesn't mean we can't try or that we won't. If anything, it gives us even more reason to convince them. To stop them before they go any further, before they do something they can't come back from. Tony hesitated, his gaze dropping for a moment. Maybe, he murmured, uncertainty edging his voice. Or maybe they have already crossed past that point. A few hours later, the Quinjet descended into a dense, secluded forest, far from prying eyes and government surveillance. Clint had assured them it was a safe place, a sanctuary where they could regroup. The ramp lowered, and the weary Avengers began to disembark. Gojo, with a casual application of blue, levitated the still unconscious forms of Wanda and Pietro, carrying them effortlessly as he stepped out. Banner followed, looking a little more rested but still subdued, and the others trailed after. They walked for several minutes through the woods, the silence broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot and the chirping of unseen birds. Gojo, in an attempt to lighten the mood or perhaps just to entertain himself, tried to invent a few new games. One involved guessing what he was thinking, which no one could do, and another was a storytelling game where the main rule seemed to be that every story had to conclude with how incredibly cool and powerful Gojo Satoru was. Tony, observing Gojo's antics, couldn't help but wonder if the kid was genuinely trying to lift their spirits, provide a distraction from their grim reality, or if he was just being Gojo. Finally, they emerged into a clearing. Before them stood a charming, if somewhat rustic, farmhouse. An old, rusty truck with a load of logs sat nearby, and a large barn stood off to one side. It was peaceful, idyllic, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. As they approached the house, Clint moved to the front door. He opened it, then gently guided Natasha, who was still looking shaken, inside, helping her to a nearby table. Once she was settled, Clint looked around, not with the searching gaze of an agent assessing a new location, but with the familiar look of someone searching for a loved one. "Honey," Clint called out, his voice softer than they were used to hearing. "Honey, honey, I'm home." A moment later, a woman emerged from another room. She had a warm, welcoming smile, and her stomach bulged noticeably. She was clearly pregnant. In her hands, she held a handful of crayons and some drawing paper. Her eyes lit up when she saw Clint. He hurried towards her, and they shared a tender kiss. "Brought some company," Clint said, a little sheepishly. "Sorry I didn't call ahead." Tony, ever observant, leaned towards Steve and muttered, "This is an agent of some kind, right? Deep cover. Very convincing." Gojo, overhearing Tony, sidled up to him and whispered, his voice conspiratorial, "Should I whoosh her? You know, just in case." Tony looked at Gojo, his eyes wide with alarm. "No, no, Satoru, what are you even saying?" Gojo blinked innocently behind his round glasses. "What? Tony said she was an agent. So, I thought maybe it would be a good idea if I whooshed her before she could contact anyone, you know, report our location." "No," Tony hissed back, "why would Barton bring us here if she was a threat? And I meant it as a joke, Satoru." "A bad joke, apparently." Gojo's expression remained unchanged. "To whoosh her?" he asked. Then, a slow grin spread across his face. "And I was too, actually joking. Mostly." Clint, overhearing the tail end of their hushed, somewhat alarming conversation, stepped forward, drawing their attention. No, Satoru, no one is woozing anyone here, god damn it, sometimes I wonder how did I get into this, he said firmly, though it was directed at Gojo. She isn't an agent. Well, he rubbed the back of his neck, it's a little late, no, actually, we're way past late for proper introductions. But, everyone, meet my wife, this is Laura. Just as Laura was about to greet them, the sound of small, running feet and happy laughter echoed from upstairs. Oh, incoming. Clint said, a fond smile on his face. Two small children, a boy and a girl, came racing down the stairs, their faces bright with excitement. Gojo, unable to resist, leaned towards Tony again and whispered, with a perfectly straight face. These must be the smaller agents then, the really deep cover ones. He winked, making it clear this time it was, indeed, a joke. So, how was it? I decided the house, and don't be so quick on things like they have the twins keep them so it's dangerous. They gonna be unconscious the whole time and it is just for a little while. And Pietro can't run BCZ of his legs. Q. The talk between Tony and Fury is coming, should Gojo involved as it will be interesting. Yes, no, and as always thanks for Demikateru loaded demigod for suggestions. And join my Discord for discussion if you like. Or about sharing your thoughts. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me, Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 30 comments 0 vote, Chapter 23, Thaddeus Ross. Attendance please. The two children, a girl and a slightly older boy, barreled down the stairs, their happy laughter filling the farmhouse. They made a beeline straight for Clint, launching themselves into his arms for a group hug. Clint, his tough archer exterior melting away, hugged them back tightly, a genuine, joyful smile on his face. He lifted the little girl, kissing her on the top of her head. Hey, buddy, he said warmly, how have you all been doing? Look at your face, don't tell me you haven't been eating your vegetables again. Because if not, then it will be bad, just like you promised me. The little girl, Lila, looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Did you bring Auntie Nat? She asked, her voice hopeful. Natasha, who had been sitting quietly at the table, stood up, a rare, soft smile gracing her features. Why don't you come and see for yourself, Munchkin? She said. Lila eagerly ran to her, and Natasha enveloped her in a warm hug. Gojo, meanwhile, was observing this domestic scene with an expression of utter bewilderment, as if he'd wandered into a zoo exhibit he hadn't been expecting. So, am I the only one who's completely confused here? He finally blurted out, looking around at the other Avengers. Or was I the only one genuinely surprised? Because, honestly, I thought he didn't even have a girlfriend, let alone a wife and children, huh? Don't tell me, this is a secret family, right? Classic spy stuff. Steve, ever polite, stepped forward. Sorry for barging in on you all like this, Mrs. Barton, he said to Laura. Yeah, Tony added, a touch of his usual flippancy returning. We would have called ahead, but we were operating under the distinct impression that you, didn't exist. Clint chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. Yeah, well, Fury helped me set it all up when I first joined S.H.I.E.L.D., he explained. He kept it completely off their files, off everyone's radar. And I'd like to keep it that way. I figured it would be a good, safe place for us to lay low for a while. Lila, having extracted herself from Natasha's hug, now turned her attention to the most unusual-looking newcomer. She toddled over to Gojo, her eyes wide with curiosity as she looked up at his white hair and dark, round glasses. Wow, she said, her voice filled with childlike wonder. You have white hair, and cool glasses. Do you work with my daddy? Gojo squatted down to her level, a playful grin spreading across his face. He gently, perhaps a little too roughly, patted Lila's head. Of course, I do. He declared in an overly dramatic, booming voice. Do you know how many times I've helped your dad? He always relies on me. I'm practically his partner. We're still working out the details. He leaned in conspiratorially. Hey, do you want to see something cool? He whispered, his eyes sparkling behind his glasses. You know, I can even make people into superheroes. Just like that, he snapped his fingers. Do you want to play with the awesome me? he finished, his voice now a goofy, inviting sing-song. Lila, clutching a small, well-loved teddy bear, beamed, her eyes shining with excitement. It was clear she hadn't heard something so thrilling in a long time. Really? She gasped. Can I go, Daddy? Please. I'll eat all my vegetables. All of them, she pleaded, looking up at Clint and Laura. Clint, though a little surprised by Gojo's sudden offer and his daughter's enthusiastic response, managed a smile. Yeah, why not, sweetie? He said. He then looked at Gojo, a slightly warning tone in his voice. Though, don't do anything too dangerous, Satoru. Keep the superhero making to a minimum, okay? Gojo looked offended, placing a hand dramatically over his heart. Who the hell do you think I am? He exclaimed. I am the most capable, most responsible person in anything and everything. Responsible is my middle name, well, not really, but you get the idea. Lila, not waiting for further permission, grabbed Gojo's pinky finger with her small hand and began to eagerly drag him towards the door, clearly ready for an adventure. It was evident that living in such isolation, while safe, had its disadvantages for the children. They rarely had the chance to play with anyone new. That's why Lila was so incredibly happy at the simple thought of playing with someone, even if that someone was a very strange, very powerful adult with white hair and a goofy smile. Meanwhile, at a secure military location, United States. Far from the peaceful, hidden farmhouse, the atmosphere was one of grim determination and controlled urgency. Rows of soldiers, clad in combat gear, were being briefed and equipped. They were preparing to roll out on a high-stakes mission, an operation with a single, clear objective: capture Gojo Satoru, dead or alive, though alive was strongly preferred. The military had already established a perimeter around Avengers Tower, anticipating the team's return, ready to apprehend the individual now being branded as a potential terrorist. General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, a man known for his unyielding nature and his long, contentious history with superpowered individuals, was the commander of this entire operation. The reports that had landed on his desk, the ones detailing Gojo Satoru's abilities and his alleged Hydra origins, were almost too good to be true. If they could just capture this, Gojo Satoru, and bring him in for study, for experimentation, the reports openly suggested that the process by which he gained his powers could potentially be replicated. Ross envisioned it. Entire squads, even an army, of super soldiers, each capable of toppling a threat like the Hulk. At that point, the need for initiatives like the Avengers, with their independent agendas and often frustrating disregard for authority, would become obsolete. The United States would have full, unshakable control. Ross had been promised significant rewards, promotions, and accolades if this operation was successful. The final go-ahead, the direct authorization from the president to secure this Hydra experiment, at all costs, was already in motion and could come as soon as it come. For now, they were operating within the tighter constraints of existing military regulations. But once that presidential green light came through, the gloves would be off. Gojo Satoru would be in their hands, sooner or later. The Avengers were powerful, yes, but even they would find it difficult to openly defy a direct order from the President of the United States, especially when it concerned a perceived national security threat. The potential was staggering. If they could indeed produce super soldiers based on this Gojo Satoru template, America would become the undisputed leading power on the planet. They could repel any future alien invasions like the Chitauri attack on New York with ease. Even beings like Loki and Thor, literal gods from another realm, wouldn't pose nearly as much of a problem. The world order would shift, decisively. Of course in favor to the America. A soldier, his face set and serious, came running up to General Ross, who was hunched over a holographic map, meticulously forming his plan of action. The soldier snapped to attention, saluting sharply. "Sir," the soldier reported, his voice crisp. "Avengers haven't returned to the tower, or any other known Stark property. We are still actively monitoring every known property belonging to Tony Stark, and any suspected hidden bases are safe houses. It seems, sir, someone may have already informed them about something. They are most likely in hiding." Ross looked up from the anonymously sent report he had been rereading, his eyes narrowing. "A leak," he growled, his voice a low rumble of displeasure. "Or a spy within our own ranks." He slammed a fist on the table. "Find out how they knew so fast. I want a full internal review, immediately. And double-check everything. Triplek, I want them back on our radar as soon as humanly possible if they're in hiding. They can't stay hidden forever. The soldier hardened at the direct order, his posture even more rigid. Sir, yes, sir, he replied, then turned on his heel and hurried off to carry out the general's commands. Ross watched him go, a grim satisfaction mixed with frustration on his face. The hunt for Gojo Satoru was on. So, how was it? And the BTS Pietro and Wanda are fully tied and unconscious in the barn at Clint House side. And they won't be conscious for a while. Nick Fury will be in the next chapter. Q. Should Gojo go with Tony to retrieve Jarvis or with Captain to retrieve Vision body and cradle for Jarvis? Captain, Tony. And as always, thanks for Demikateru, loaded demigod, for suggestions. And join my Discord for discussion if you like. Or about sharing your thoughts. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me. Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 32 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 24. Nick Fury. Attendance please. Outside, the air was crisp and clean, a welcome change from the recycled atmosphere of the Quinjet. Gojo, a few minutes removed from an impromptu flying session with Lila, who had shrieked with delight as Blue gently lifted her into the air, her calls of, "Mama, look. I'm flying," echoing through the clearing, was now perched comfortably on a large log. Nearby, Tony and Steve were engaged in a more rustic activity. They were splitting logs with axes, the rhythmic thud of metal on wood a steady beat in the otherwise quiet forest. It almost looked like a competition, each man trying to outdo the other in sheer lumberjack prowess, though Gojo suspected it was more about working off nervous energy than any real rivalry. Gojo, ever curious and never one to shy away from potentially awkward questions, broke the silence. "So, Cap," he called out, his voice casual, "what did that red witch show you in your little mintrip? I was just wondering what could possibly be your nightmare. Is it fighting some big bad? Losing someone important? Or maybe, running out of American flags?" Steve paused, leaning on his axe, his brow furrowed in thought. "Sometimes," he said, his voice quiet, "I feel like I'm still back with S.H.I.E.L.D. Still fighting to save everyone, but everyone around me is hiding something, keeping secrets, thinking they're helping, but really just making things worse." Tony, who had stopped his own chopping, understood the pointed remark immediately. "If you want to say something, say it to my face, Captain," Tony retorted, his voice tight. "What's the point of talking nilly-willy, dancing around the issue?" Steve brought his axe down hard, splitting another log with a satisfying crack. "I just shared my thoughts about S.H.I.E.L.D., he said, his gaze fixed on the wood. "But it seems someone around here knew what they were doing, knew the risks, and still went ahead and did it anyway, just like S.H.I.E.L.D. would have. Just like they did with the Tesseract." He looked up, his eyes meeting Tony's. "Earth's mightiest heroes, and one man, one machine, pulled us all apart like we were cotton candy. What a joke." Tony, trying to deflect, turned the question back, echoing Gojo's earlier curiosity. "It seems you walked away all right from the Red Witch's voodoo magic, Cap. No lasting ill effects. Is that a problem?" Steve asked, his tone neutral. "Not really," Tony conceded. "I just don't trust anyone without a dark past. Call me old-fashioned." "Well," Steve said, a hint of weariness in his voice, "let's just say you haven't seen mine yet." Tony slammed his axe down, embedding it in a stump. "You do know that Ultron is actively trying to tear us apart, right? This is exactly what he wants." Steve continued splitting another piece of log, not looking at Tony. "Well, I guess you'd know about his plans, wouldn't you? Though whether you'd actually tell us or not, that's a bit of a question." That was the spark. Tony's patience snapped. "You know, Captain," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "I think you quite like being a superhero. Fighting the bad guys, getting your picture on television, people calling you a hero. It's a good gig for you." Steve, too, put his axe aside, turning to face Tony fully. "What? Maybe your old ears didn't hear me correctly," Tony taunted. "I said, maybe you like saving everyone and then being called out as a hero. If I didn't know you better, I might even think you orchestrated this whole thing, this whole end of the world scenario, just so you could swoop in, save the day, and do the same thing over and over again. Keep the team together, keep the fight going. Steve stepped closer to Tony, his jaw tight. What does that mean? It means, Tony said, his voice rising, you want to keep this team together for as long as possible, no matter the cost. But that's your dream, Cap, not mine. I want to end this team. I want this to be over so everyone can go home, live their lives, be with their families. I want to build a world where the Avengers are obsolete. And I think you're doing quite the job of ending it yourself, Stark. Steve shot back, his own anger flaring. Ultron is ending this team because of your actions. Every time someone tries to play God, tries to fix everything before it even happens, innocent people die. Every single time. Just as their heated argument was about to escalate into a physical confrontation, a welcome interruption arrived. Laura, Clint's wife, approached them tentatively. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Stark, she said, her voice soft. Clint said you wouldn't mind, but our tractor doesn't seem to want to start. I thought maybe you. Before she could finish, Tony, grateful for the distraction, replied, his anger momentarily deflating, yeah, sure. I'll give her a kick. No problem. He turned and headed towards the barn where the tractor was presumably kept. Gojo, who had been thoroughly enjoying the escalating drama between the two heroes, a smirk playing on his lips, watched Tony go. The tension was still thick in the air, but at least a physical fight had been averted. For now, he had a feeling, though, that another guest might be waiting for Tony in that barn, someone who wasn't looking for help with a tractor. Tony entered the dimly lit barn, the scent of hay and old machinery filling his nostrils. He located the stubborn tractor and began to assess the problem, his mind still buzzing from the confrontation with Steve. Then, a familiar, gravelly voice cut through the quiet from the shadowy depths of the barn. Please, Stark, the voice said, do me a favor and try not to bring that thing to life, whatever it is you're tinkering with now. Tony paused, a knowing smirk touching his lips. Why, Ms. Barton, you little minx, he said, not bothering to turn around yet. I get it. Maria Hill called you, right? Was she ever not working for you? He slowly began to walk towards the source of the voice. And there, leaning against a stack of hay bales, his hands casually tucked into the pockets of his long coat, was Nick Fury, former director of the now disbanded S.H.I.E.L.D. Artificial intelligence, Fury said, his one good eye fixed on Tony. You never even hesitated, did you? And now, keeping a hydra experiment with you, someone who, for all we know, could be a deep-cover spy. Tony, putting the pieces together, stopped a few feet from Fury. So, that's why you're here, he said, his tone hardening. No, don't tell me. You're here for Satoru, aren't you? On behalf of the government. Fury, still seated casually on the hay, nodded slowly. Tony, I know you don't want to hear this, but you've got to consider handing the kid over. Let the government deal with him for now. You need to focus all your energy on Ultron. Then, after Ultron is neutralized, you can deal with the kid and whatever mess the government makes. But right now, you can't effectively do both at the same time. Tony scoffed. Nah, I won't. And who says I can't do two things at once? I'm an excellent multitasker. It's one of my many talents. Really, Tony? Fury pressed, his voice firm. You're willing to go against government, possibly even the president, for some kid found in a Hydra facility, who could very well be a spy planted to tear you apart from the inside. You remember why S.H.I.E.L.D. got disbanded, right? Secrets. Infiltrators. You're keeping someone dangerously close, someone you know next to nothing about. Really, you want to talk about danger, Fury? Let's talk about it, Tony shot back, his temper flaring. Let's play a what-if scenario. What if S.H.I.E.L.D. had found the kid first? How many days, how many hours, do you think it would have been before he went on a rampage and wiped out a city, or worse? Because that's what S.H.I.E.L.D. did. You wanted to use him, didn't you? Turn him into another weapon, something to point at gods or alien threats. Just like you did with the Tesseract. He is a threat, Stark. Fury insisted. He one-sided beat down the Hulk, the strongest one on your team, and you think you can control him? That he'll just play nice? Yeah, I think I can, Tony said, a surprising amount of conviction in his voice. He's unhinged, maybe a little. But at least he's with us right now, not actively against us like those two twins who want to destroy me because they saw my name on a bombshell from a decade ago. And let's not forget, Fury, he saved a city. He saved thousands, if not millions, of civilians from the Hulk's rampage. He's a double-edged sword, Stark, Fury warned, his gaze intense. And swords like that have a nasty habit of cutting the hand that wields them. Just then, a figure shimmered into existence directly behind Tony. Gojo Satoru stepped out from Tony's side, a casual smile on his face. "Please don't talk about me like I'm some kind of weapon or something," he said, his voice light. "And what is it with this Hydra and me connection everyone keeps making? I mean, I don't exactly remember anything from before the ice nap, but if I was with them, actively working for them, I highly doubt I would have ended up sleeping in an ice capsule, forgotten in some Sokovian basement." In response to Gojo's sudden appearance, Tony just sighed, though Fury reacted instantly. He was on his feet in a flash, a gun appearing in his hand as if from nowhere, aimed squarely at Gojo's head. "How long have you been here?" Fury demanded, his voice a low growl. Gojo, completely unfazed by the weapon pointed at him, tilted his head. Let's just say, from about the time you sat down on those hay bales and Tony here turned to face you." Tony stepped slightly in front of Gojo. "Fury, can you please put the gun away? He's with us. He's on our side." He then shot an exasperated look at Gojo. "And how many times do I have to tell you, Satoru, don't sneak up on me like that. It's not good for my blood pressure." Gojo shrugged innocently. "Well, I got bored outside. I thought maybe I would come in and help you fix that tractor. Though, just as I was about to open the barn door, I heard you talking to someone. So, I figured I'd teleport in behind you for a more dramatic surprise entry. You know, keep things interesting. So, how was it? TBH, it didn't really go the way I had expected. I forgot most of the dialogues I was gonna use in this and whatnot. So I hope it wasn't that bad. It may been a repetitive of the movie scene. Was the chapter bad? Yes, no, in the middle 50-50. And as always, thanks for Demikateru, loaded demigod, for suggestions. And join my Discord for discussion if you like. Or about sharing your thoughts. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me, Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 30 comments 0 vote. Chapter 25. Little, unhinged. Attendance please. The few seconds stretched into a minute in the dusty barn. Gojo remained utterly still, that unnerving, pleasant smile fixed on his face, even as Nick Fury's gun remained unwavering, aimed directly at his head. Finally, Gojo, his smile still in place, broke the silence. "Man," he said, his voice light and casual, "you can point that thing at me all you want. But you do know what would happen if you actually fired it, right?" Fury's one good eye narrowed. "What will you do?" he challenged, his voice a low growl. Gojo's smile vanished, replaced by an expression so cold, so devoid of emotion, it sent a shiver down even Tony's spine. "First," Gojo said, his voice dropping to a soft, chilling whisper, "I will plunge my hand straight into your heart. And then, I will watch, very closely, as you watch your own life fading away, like the sun setting in the evening. After that, I will find out everything about your relations, everyone you care about. It doesn't matter if they're here, or in some remote countryside, or in another country entirely. I will find them, and then, I will take your body, your lifeless body, and I will show it to them. And then, the same hand that went into your heart, I'll plunge it into their hearts. And I'll watch, with a smile, as their life's light goes out, just like the electricity being cut in a house." He paused, his gaze unwavering, locking onto Fury's. Tony felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He didn't know what emotion he was feeling, fear, disbelief, a horrified fascination, but it was powerful. "Do you want me to continue?" Gojo asked, his voice still a soft, deadly monotone. Fury's grip on the gun remained strong for another beat, his face a mask of stone. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, his hand began to lower. He didn't holster the weapon, but he dropped his aim, though his posture remained one of extreme caution. The moment Fury's gun was no longer pointed at him, Gojo's charming, easygoing smile returned as if it had never left. "See," he said brightly, "that wasn't so hard, was it? It's extremely rude to point a gun at someone you've just met. Bad manners." He then chuckled. "And, of course, what I just said was not true. Obviously, I'm not some kind of psychopath, man. Why can't any of you understand a simple joke? You're all so serious." He put a hand to his head, feigning a thoughtful expression. "Is it just me being me that's so unpleasant?" He mused aloud, as if talking to himself. "Or is it just my natural charm? Is it so overwhelmingly high that it makes the other party somewhat jealous, and they just instantly want to kill me on sight? It's a tough life, being this amazing." Fury, clearly not amused by Gojo's joke, finally spoke, his voice still gravelly. "You don't know about this? That you're on a government list to be captured, no matter the cost." "Ah, I know about that," Gojo replied casually. "That's why I'm here, actually. I mean, I told them to just drop me off somewhere, let me handle my own business, but they didn't listen, so I just tagged along. Figured I could help them out a bit, you know, with their little robot problem." He continued, a hint of genuine puzzlement in his voice. "I honestly don't know why they think they can capture me in the first place. You can ask a kid on the street, and even they would probably say it's impossible, especially since your government couldn't even manage to catch the Hulk, and he's, you know, big and green and not exactly subtle. And not to brag, because I'm definitely not going to brag, as I just said, but you did see that video of me and the Hulk, right? The one where I was redecorating his face. So, how exactly is the government planning to catch me?" Fury's gaze was unyielding. "You sure have a lot of confidence for someone who claims to have no memories and just woke up from an ice nap less than a day ago." "When you're me," Gojo said, shrugging, "you'll get it. It's not confidence that I have, it's a fact. And that fact is that you, and your government, can't do a single thing to me. Think about it. The government, they usually go after family, right? Try to use them as leverage to make someone surrender. Well, guess what?" Gojo spread his hands wide. "I don't have a family. Not that I remember, anyway. Friends, don't have those either, not really. So, it's just me against the entire US government. And who do you really think would survive that encounter?" He leaned forward slightly, his smile gone again, replaced by a look of absolute, chilling certainty. "I don't have anything to lose, Fury. But your government, they have a whole country to lose. Millions of people. So, I think you're smart enough to know what I'm trying to say, what I'm stating here, right?" Tony quickly stepped in, trying to de-escalate the rapidly intensifying situation. Okay, let's not get too worked up here," he said, forcing a nervous laugh. "And just as I mentioned earlier, Fury, Satoru's just a little unhinged. Nothing to worry about, mostly." Fury, however, was not easily placated. "I don't think you know what a little means, Stark." His gaze then shifted to the other side of the barn, where the unconscious forms of Wanda and Pietro lay. "And you want to tell me what they are still doing here with you? Didn't exactly get a chance to drop them off at a supersecure, non-existent holding facility," Tony retorted. "Though, they're unconscious and will be for a good while, at least until we figure out our next move here." Gojo chimed in cheerfully, "Yeah, I broke both of her brother's legs so he can't walk, or run. Just to be safe, you know." He beamed, as if this were a perfectly reasonable and helpful course of action. Fury just stared at him. 4 hours later, inside the cozy farmhouse, a somewhat domestic scene was unfolding, juxtaposed with the underlying tension of their situation. Gojo was sprawled languidly in a comfortable armchair, his posture a study in relaxed nonchalance. Beside his chair, in a smaller, chilled-sized armchair someone had dragged over, sat Lila Barton. She was mimicking Gojo's exact slouch, her small body slumped in the chair in a perfect, miniature imitation of his pose. It was unclear if she was consciously imitating him or if she'd simply caught a contagious case of Gojoitis. Across the room, Nick Fury, Tony, Steve, Natasha, and Clint were huddled around the kitchen table, their voices low as they discussed strategies to deal with Ultron. They occasionally glanced over at Gojo, their expressions a mixture of wariness and grudging acceptance. Their intense discussion, which lasted about 10 to 15 minutes, revolved around Ultron's plans for the massive amount of vibranium he was trying to acquire. They reasoned that with such a quantity, he wasn't just building a single, small object, he was likely constructing something significant, something potentially world-altering. They also touched on Ultron's continued attempts to access nuclear launch codes, a chilling prospect that Tony was particularly keen to prevent, though a small, unacknowledged part of him also held onto a sliver of hope that he might somehow reconnect with Jarvis amidst the digital chaos Ultron was creating. Gojo and Lila, engrossed in their own silent, slouching competition, were too far away to overhear the specifics of the serious discussion. Eventually, Clint broke away from the group and approached them, or more accurately, approached Lila. He said, a fond smile on his face, I think someone might have missed their bedtime today. Lila, with a mischievous glint in her eye that mirrored Gojo's, pointed a small finger at him. Satoru made me do it. She declared jokingly. I was totally going to bed, but then he said he would show me something super cool. Gojo looked at the little girl so easily blaming him for her missed bedtime and chuckled. Well, I think it definitely is your bedtime now, little agent, he said. We can play more later. Super cool things take energy, you know. Clint was about to pick Lila up when she suddenly clutched onto Gojo's arm with surprising strength. Daddy, she said, her lower lip trembling slightly in a classic display of childhood emotional blackmail, can Satoru put me to sleep today? Pretty please. Clint looked genuinely surprised. The Gojo infection was indeed spreading at an alarming rate. He looked from his daughter's pleading face to Gojo's amused one. Can you? Clint asked, a hint of desperation in his voice. Gojo lifted his hands in a mock surrender. Well, I'm in a bit of a bind here, caught between a rock and a hard place, or rather, a tired father and a very persuasive small child. But okay, fine, you owe me one after this, Barton. Sure, anything, Clint agreed readily. Yay, Lila cheered. Satoru, now fly me to my bedroom. She demanded, her previous sleepiness forgotten. Gojo sighed dramatically. You know, this flying business is surprisingly tiring for me, he said, though his smile indicated otherwise. But, oh well, for my #1 fan. He gently used blue to levitate Lila, and together they floated out of the living room and towards her bedroom. Gojo carefully deposited Lila into her bed, her older brother already tucked in and wide awake in his own bed across the room. Gojo put the blanket over Lila and patted her on the head, perhaps a little too roughly, a wide grin on his face. You know, he said, when you get big, I am totally going to tease you about this. Remember that time you made me fly you to bed? Lila giggled. When I get big, can I be on your team? She asked, her eyes shining. Gojo looked at her thoughtfully. Yeah, why not? He said. You can be my sidekick. Lila immediately shook her head, her expression serious. Aha, no, I will be the lead. You can be my sidekick. Gojo made an X with his hands. Nah, definitely my sidekick. No further questions. Now, sleep. A playful argument about who would be the lead and who would be the sidekick ensued for another 5 minutes, a debate which Gojo, much to his mock chagrin, ultimately lost. Lila, it turned out, was remarkably stubborn. Laura then came into the room, a warm smile on her face, saying that the others were calling for him downstairs and that she would take care of getting Lila sleep. Gojo said his BBII to Lila, gave a nod to her brother, and a polite farewell to Laura. He then headed back downstairs where the rest of the team was gathered. They were clearly preparing to leave, gear being checked, final plans being discussed. He was quickly brought up to speed. They had a new lead on Ultron's location. Tony and Bruce would be heading off separately for a short while to another location for a different angle related to stopping Ultron, but they would rejoin the main team later. Gojo, meanwhile, would be going with Steve, Natasha, and Clint to confront Ultron at this new location. So, how was it? Next we'll be retrieving the cradle safely so Jarvis can be put into that. If wanted him to go with Tony but I made him decided to go with Steve as there are many butterfly effects here and there, so something could have happened while retrieving the cradle. I skipped the talk as it would have been same and wrote Lila scene with Gojo a wholesome one. Q. And what do you think about Gojo unhinged version? Was it too much? Yes, no, and as always thanks for Demikateru loaded demigod for suggestions. And join my Discord for discussion if you like. Or about sharing your thoughts. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me. Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 37 comments 0 vote. Chapter 26. You did it, not me. Attendance please. Seoul, South Korea Drive. Helen Cho's Advanced Bio Lab Facility. The gleaming, sterile environment of Dr. Helen Cho's state-of-the-art laboratory was now a place of fear and coercion. Ultron had taken control. His metallic voice echoed through the facility, a constant, unnerving presence. Dr. Cho, her face pale and drawn, was at the heart of it, forced to operate the very technology she had pioneered, the regeneration cradle for Ultron's sinister purpose, the creation of a perfect, synthetic body. Ultron had made his terms brutally clear. If Dr. Cho didn't cooperate, if she didn't pour all her expertise into bringing his new form to life, everyone she held dear, her family, her friends, would suffer. This lab, her life's work, and everyone in it, would be reduced to ashes. To emphasize his point, Ultron had already, coldly and clinically, eliminated 2 researchers who had shown signs of resistance. Their lifeless bodies were a grim testament to his ruthlessness. Iron Legion drones patrolled the hallways and labs, their glowing blue optics monitoring Drive Cho's every move. Ultron himself, in one of his more advanced drone bodies, observed the process intently. He knew he didn't have much time. Orchestrating the government's pursuit of Gojo Satoru had bought him a crucial window, a distraction. Now, all he needed was for this new body to be completed, then to secure the Mind Stone from Loki's scepter, and finally, to transfer his consciousness into his ultimate form. Ultron looked at the nascent body taking shape in the cradle, his metallic brow ridges furrowing in something akin to anticipation. Dr. Cho, her hands trembling slightly, tapped commands into a console, her eyes fixed on the complex biological readouts. Iron Legion drones hovered nearby, their presence a constant, oppressive reminder of her captivity. The cellular integration is almost complete, she reported to Ultron, her voice carefully neutral. The neural pathways are stabilizing. This will be done in a few more moments. I know, Drive Cho, Ultron replied, his voice devoid of any warmth. That is why I spared you back at the tower. Your expertise is invaluable. And after this is done, as promised, I will leave you and everyone else here unharmed. He paused, a hint of something cold in his tone. But if you hadn't resisted in the beginning, those 2 lives, they would still be with us. Unbeknownst to Ultron, the Avengers, Quinjet had just touched down silently a short distance from the compromised facility. He was alerted almost immediately by his external sensors. His head snapped up. How much time before it's done? He demanded of Dr. Cho, his voice suddenly urgent. Dr. Cho, startled by his abruptness, replied, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm literally printing a synthetic brain in here, this isn't like baking a cake. It needs. Before she could continue, a new voice, light and almost teasing, echoed from the hallway, cutting through the tense atmosphere. Man, you really hijacked a whole high-tech lab just for a new body. How does it feel, playing Frankenstein? It was Gojo Satoru, while the other Avengers were engaged in a fierce battle outside Drive Cho's facility, battling wave after wave of Iron Legion drones that Ultron was throwing at them to buy himself precious time. Gojo had decided on a more direct approach. With a simple, almost disdainful warp, he bypassed the chaotic skirmish entirely and appeared directly inside the main laboratory. He strolled into the main lab, hands casually in his pockets. With a barely perceptible flick of his wrist, a vibrant blue energy enveloped every Iron Legion drone in the room. In an instant, they were all violently pulled towards each other, crashing together with a deafening shriek of tearing metal, compacting into a single, mangled ball of scrap. It didn't even take a full second. Now, the only active Iron Legion units were outside the lab, and Ultron himself. Ultron, seeing his guards instantaneously neutralized, let out a sound that could only be described as an annoyed digital sigh. Why can't you just stay out of my way? He grumbled. Gojo just grinned. Dr. Cho, seeing her robotic captors reduced to a pile of junk and recognizing Gojo from the Avengers Tower incident, saw her chance. She knew what he was capable of. Without a second thought, she made a desperate run towards Gojo's side, believing he could protect her, destroy Ultron, and then, perhaps, she could undo the terrible work she'd been forced to do. Ultron, seeing Drive, Cho flee, let out another sigh, this one tinged with something like disappointment. Really, Doctor? We were getting along so well, in our own way. Why do you humans always have to make things so difficult? As he spoke, he raised his hands, and twin beams of concentrated energy, similar to Iron Man's repulsors, shot out, aimed directly at the fleeing Drive. Cho. Before the beams could reach her, Gojo warped. He appeared in an instant, directly in front of Dr. Cho, positioning himself between her and Ultron's attack. The repulsor blast slammed into his ever-present infinity, dissipating harmlessly inches from his face. He looked at Ultron, who was still reeling from Gojo's earlier intervention, and feigned a wounded expression. "Why am I in your way?" Gojo asked, his voice dripping with mock hurt. "Man, you kind of hurt my feelings just now. We're friends, you know. Or at least, we could be. I'm just going to set you on the right path, guide you towards better choices. That's what friends should do, right?" Before Ultron could process the bizarre statement, Gojo moved with blinding speed, a blur of motion. He grabbed Ultron's current drone body and slammed it hard against the nearest wall, the impact cracking the reinforced concrete. Dr. Cho, seeing her opportunity amidst the sudden chaos, scrambled back towards the regeneration cradle. Her fingers flew across the control panel, intending to reverse the process, to erase the nascent being Ultron was creating. Gojo, however, noticed her movement out of the corner of his eye. "Ma'am, please," he called out, a gentle but firm blue aura subtly surrounding Drive. Cho, halting her movements. "Don't touch anything. Whatever is in that cradle, it's evidence. We need it to understand what this red-eyed robot is planning." Dr. Cho looked at him, her face a mask of anger and desperation to undo whatever she had done, and she doesn't have a lot of time to do that. "What? He's making a body for himself. A body made of vibranium. I have to undo it all before it's complete." "Nah, ma'am, I can't let you do that," Gojo said, his tone surprisingly gentle. "It's for a game friend of mine. You can just sleep for a bit." With a precise, almost delicate, application of force, more a controlled push than a violent shove, Gojo sent Drive Cho lightly against the wall, just hard enough to render her unconscious without causing serious injury. Ultron, extricating himself from the cracked wall, looked at Gojo with what could only be described as digital confusion. "You are far more unpredictable than my calculations suggested," he stated, his voice a low hum. "This makes you a significant liability for my future plans. You are my #1 priority to get rid of now. Congrats, you overtake Avengers in the list. But why did you stop Drive Cho from undoing it? Firstly, I'm honored for your attention." Gojo chuckled. "Secondly, what are you saying? I was helping her, and then you shot your repulsor beams at her. I mean, who's going to believe a self-proclaimed humanity-destroying AI over innocent, helpful me? So, I'm just going to go ahead and place all the blame for her current nap squarely on you." Ultron let out a sound that might have been a laugh, or perhaps just a burst of static. Like anyone would actually believe that narrative. With a sudden, explosive burst of energy, Ultron blew out the wall behind him, making a rapid escape from Gojo's immediate grasp. It worked. Ultron flew back into the main lab area, and a few more Iron Legion drones followed him, clearly intending to secure the regeneration cradle and retreat. But Gojo was ready. With a wave of his hand, he unleashed Red, and the remaining drones were blasted apart, reduced to smoking wreckage. The Avengers were still engaged outside. Hawkeye was providing air support from the Quinjet. Gojo knew he had to get the cradle to Tony. Tony would understand its significance, especially concerning Jarvis. Ultron, now in another new drone body that had seemingly appeared from nowhere, hovered in front of Gojo. "Why are you struggling so much?" Ultron asked, his voice almost reasonable. "You can't truly kill me. Why not join hands with me? We can end this endless cycle of war and human greed, all at once. Create true peace." Gojo scoffed, not really interested in being Jesus Christ, or a god, or entertaining some kid's naive thoughts about peace. True peace. That isn't really possible, is it? If it's not humans fighting humans, then there are aliens. If not aliens, there are gods, or interdimensional beings, or who knows what else. There's always something. He casually lifted the entire regeneration cradle, wires, tubes, and all with his blue technique, levitating it beside him. Ultron immediately fired his repulsor beams, but, as expected, they splashed harmlessly against Gojo's infinity. Got the cradle, or whatever Ultron is planning with this thing, Gojo said into his comms. Hey, Clint, need a ride for this oversized baby incubator. Where are you? Clint's voice came back, accompanied by the shadow of the Quinjet passing overhead. Above you, Satoru. Captain's still dealing with a few straggler legionnaires down there. Gojo, while simultaneously unleashing another blast of red that obliterated Ultron's current body only for another drone to immediately take its place. Ultron was becoming as persistent as a cockroach, guided the cradle upwards with blue. Some Iron Legion drones, along with the newly buddied Ultron, tried to intercept it, but Gojo, hovering in midair, dealt with them easily, swatting them out of the sky one by one with casual, powerful strikes. Clint, go! Gojo yelled into the comms as the cradle was safely drawn into the Quinjet. Now, get this to Tony with Natasha. He'll know what to do with it. Captain and I can handle things down here and take care of Dr. Cho. She's unconscious. Ultron attacked her while she was doing whatever she was doing to the cradle. You sure you two are going to be alright down there? Clint asked, a note of concern in his voice. Steve's voice, strained but determined, cut in. Satoru's right, Clint. We'll deal with the remaining threats and look after Dr. Cho. You deliver that cradle to Stark. Now. With the regeneration cradle secured aboard the Quinjet, Clint didn't waste a second. He throttled the engines, and the jet surged forward, speeding away from Seoul. Their destination was a decommissioned SHIELD research facility, a place Nick Fury had disclosed to Tony, a ghost lab, shut down after SHIELD's collapse, now about to be repurposed for a desperate, high-stakes gamble. Natasha was with Clint, ready to assist with the precious, and potentially volatile, cargo. Ultron, enraged at the loss of his prize, made repeated, frantic attempts to intercept the departing Quinjet. Each time he manifested in a new Iron Legion drone body and got close, however, Gojo would effortlessly swat him out of the sky. It was almost like a game to Gojo, a cruel taunt. He'd let Ultron get tantalizingly close, instilling a fleeting moment of hope in the AI, only to obliterate that drone body and force Ultron to start the process all over again from a more distant unit. Why are you struggling so much? Gojo called out, his voice laced with amusement as he hovered in the air, watching another of Ultron's forms plummet towards the ground. You know you can't defeat me. It's really quite futile. Why not just surrender to me? We could have a nice chat. Maybe I could teach you some better jokes. He was openly mocking Ultron now, enjoying the AI's mounting frustration. With a final, decisive warp, Gojo appeared beside Ultron's latest iteration. He grabbed the drone and, with a contemptuous shove, slammed it downwards into the roof of the biolab facility below, crushing its metallic frame against the reinforced concrete. Only one Iron Legion drone remained airborne now, circling warily. Ultron's consciousness instantly transferred to it. You have taken away something very important to me, Gojo Satoru. Ultron's voice crackled from the drone's speakers, filled with a cold, simmering fury. But I still have time. I still have contingencies. You will regret coming in my way, you will all regret it. Blah, 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 more threats, Gojo said with a dismissive wave. Before Ultron could utter another word, Gojo unleashed a focused blast of red. The final Iron Legion drone exploded in a shower of sparks and shrapnel. Silence, for a moment, descended. Gojo tapped his comms. Yo, Cap, still alive down there? Is everything dealt with on your end? Steve's voice came back, strained and punctuated by the clang of metal on metal. Yeah, almost, he gasped. Gojo could hear the sounds of Captain America still engaged in combat, likely with the last few ground-based legionnaires that Gojo hadn't bothered to mop up. Then, a final, decisive thud and a grunt from Steve. A moment of silence, then. Okay, no, I'm done. It's clear down here. A.N. So, how was it? Team is going to get apart and fight each other in the next chapter. For putting Jarvis into Vision. But first we have to put Mind Stone in the Vision body. Satoru is gonna get the scepter from Thor. Q. And do you guys want Ultron Pov in the next chapter for this loss or just continuing the story? Yes, no, and as always thanks for Demikateru, loaded demigod, for suggestions. And join my Discord for discussion if you like. Or about sharing your thoughts. You can join my Discord server, URL Or in short, just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Vote for me. Kazuma Trash Creators Thoughts. 28 comments 0 vote. Chapter 27. Mind Stone. Attendance please. Clint pushed the Quinjet to its limits, the decommissioned shield facility their urgent destination. Military patrols were active around Stark Tower and other known Avengers locations, and they had absolutely no time to deal with government interference while Ultron was still a clear and present danger. Tony and Bruce Banner were already there when the Quinjet arrived, having evidently made progress on whatever separate mission they'd undertaken. The regeneration cradle was quickly unloaded and set up in its supposed place, dust-covered lab, its advanced machinery humming back to life. Banner immediately began examining the cradle, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's completely sealed," he announced, looking up at Tony and Clint. "Airtight. We can't just pry it open without potentially damaging what's inside. We'll have to try and break the process down from the inside, reverse what Ultron and Cho started. Otherwise, we won't be able to erase the body within." Thor was also present, Loki's scepter held firmly in his grasp. Clint, after ensuring the cradle was secure, was about to head back out with Natasha. "We need to pick up Steve and Satoru," he said. "Had to leave them to secure the area after Satoru handled things." Tony's eyes were fixed on the cradle, a familiar, intense look on his face, the same look he'd had when he was first theorizing about Ultron. "Thor," Tony said, turning to the God of Thunder, "can you go with them? We don't know if Ultron will try to attack them again on the way back. He'll likely come with more Legionnaires this time, if he's smart." Thor glanced at the scepter, then back at Tony. "Loki's scepter is safe here, Thor," Tony assured him. "You don't have to worry about that. We'll guard it. Do not let it out of your sight," Thor warned, his voice grave. "If something happens here, if Ultron attacks, escape with the scepter immediately. Hawkeye, Natasha, let us go." The three of them departed, leaving Tony and Bruce alone with the cradle. Tony stared at the synthetic, vibranium-laced body taking shape within the translucent chamber. Banner, noticing the look, turned to him. "Tony," Bruce said, his voice hesitant, "let's get this done. Let's erase it, fast." Tony held up a hand, stopping Bruce. "Wait, Banner, about this." Bruce stopped, his eyes meeting Tony's. The look, he recognized it instantly. It was the same dangerous, brilliant, reckless spark he'd seen when Tony was first conceptualizing the Ultron initiative. Bruce shook his head, a sense of dread washing over him. "Tony, no, 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 no. We can't. You have to trust me, Bruce," Tony pleaded. "Or maybe, just possibly, kind of not," Banner retorted, his voice strained. "You know I can't possibly outmatch an AI who is growing exponentially by every second, right?" Tony argued, his voice urgent. "An AI who can escape to anywhere in the world through the internet. Ultron's mind is evolving constantly. He's getting smarter, more dangerous, with every passing moment. So, you want me to help you put Jarvis in it?" Banner said, understanding dawning. Yes, during their brief side mission, Tony and Bruce had managed to recover fragments of Jarvis's core programming. He was broken, scattered, but his fundamental protocols, his loyalty, remained intact. That was why nuclear codes were still safe, why Ultron hadn't achieved total digital supremacy yet. "Tony, we just can't," Bruce said, a desperate edge to his voice. "What if we create another Ultron? But this time, with an indestructible vibranium body? Because this time, we'll complete it," Tony insisted. "You and I both know we didn't truly create Ultron, not fully. We just laid some of the groundwork, the initial framework. We weren't even close to half of what he became, maybe not even 10%. Ultron was an aberration, something twisted by the Mind Stone's influence." He gestured to the cradle. "This time, it's just a matter of putting Jarvis, our Jarvis, into that body. But first, we have to complete the upload process, get him in there before Cap and the others get back and try to stop us." "Tony, I don't think," Banner began, his doubts still strong. "Banner, don't think, just help me," Tony implored. "Jarvis is the only real counter we have left against Ultron. If we don't do this, in a few more days, maybe even hours, not even Jarvis will be enough to stop Ultron from accessing those nuclear codes and ending everything." Just then, Jarvis's familiar, synthesized voice spoke from the Stark phone lying on a nearby table, where his fragmented code was being held. I believe, Drive, Banner, Jarvis said, that we can give this a chance. The potential benefits, weighed against the current threat Ultron poses, are significant. Banner, please, Tony urged. We won't get another chance like this. We have to do it, and we have to do it faster than Cap and the others can get here. A new voice suddenly chimed in from behind Tony, startling them both. I think it's a shot worth giving. It was Gojo Satoru. Tony jumped. How did you? Oh, right, forget it. Space warping. Gojo strolled into the lab, looking around with interest. Tony's right, you know, he said, nodding at Banner. We can't truly defeat Ultron as long as he can just escape into the net. Even though I'm strong, ridiculously so, even I can't stop him from just, poof, vanishing. And hey, Jarvis, Gojo grinned at the phone, I missed you, man. And our gaming sessions. We need to get back to those. It is good to see you too, Sir Satoru, Jarvis replied in his calm AI voice. But, Gojo continued, his expression turning serious as he looked at the cradle, we have to give him a soul. Both Banner and Tony looked confused. A soul? Tony asked. Satoru, we're creating an advanced AI, not performing some kind of divine intervention. Gojo ignored them. He walked straight to where Loki's scepter had been carefully placed. He picked it up. We have to put this stone, he said, indicating the glowing blue gem at its tip, into that body's head. There's a space for it, see? He pointed to a small indentation on the forehead of the synthetic being. I heard Ultron talking about it back at Cho's lab. How he needed the stone to make this body work properly. This body is like 50% of the equation. This stone is the other 50%. Without it, the body won't function as it's truly supposed to. Without waiting for any further discussion or permission, Gojo brought his hands together, gripping the scepter tightly. He focused his infinity, pressing it inwards against the blue casing surrounding the Mind Stone, applying immense, controlled pressure. No, wait, Satoru, stop, Banner and Tony shouted in unison, lunging forward. But it was too late. With a sharp crack, the outer blue shell of the scepter shattered. And there, pulsing with an intense yellow light in Gojo Satoru's hand, was one of the 6 Infinity Stones, the Mind Stone. Bruce Banner stared at the pulsing yellow gem in Gojo's hand, a look of stunned astonishment on his face. So, that small stone, he breathed, that's what was inside Loki's scepter all along. That's what allowed him to control people's minds. The sheer power emanating from the Mind Stone was palpable, even to him. Don't really know all the specifics, Gojo said with a shrug, casually tossing the now powerless remnants of the scepter's casing aside. I just did what Ultron was explaining to Dr. Cho while he was monologuing about his evil mastermind plan back at her lab. Something about this stone being the key to making the body fully functional. He then looked expectantly at Tony and Bruce. So, can you guys open the cradle now and get it working? So I can pop this shiny rock into that body's forehead. Banner immediately shook his head, his earlier anxieties rushing back. No, Gojo, we can't. We don't know what that stone truly is, what it's capable of. For all we know, putting it into that synthetic body could influence Jarvis's mind, corrupt him. I think that stone is what created Ultron in the first place, or at least twisted him into what he became. Tony, however, had a different look in his eyes. It was a look of grim determination, of someone who had weighed all the terrible possibilities and had still chosen a dangerous path forward. We're going to do it, Bruce, he said, his voice firm. That stone, it didn't create Ultron from nothing. It just completed what we started, but in its own twisted vision. But just as I said before, this time we will complete it. Almost 70% of the foundational work for this body is already done, thanks to Ultron and Dr. Cho. All we have to do now is finish integrating its systems, complete the physical form, and then upload Jarvis into it. Tony, what are you saying? Banner exclaimed, aghast. This is too risky. We could be making an even bigger mistake. What followed was a tense, rapid-fire exchange between Tony and Bruce that lasted a good 5 minutes. Banner argued vehemently against the plan, citing the dangers, the unknowns, the catastrophic potential if things went wrong again. Tony countered every point, his arguments fueled by a desperate urgency, by the conviction that this was their last, best chance against an exponentially evolving Ultron. He spoke of Jarvis's inherent stability, of the potential for a truly benevolent AI in a powerful, incorruptible form. Finally, after 5 minutes of intense, back-and-forth debate, Banner sagged, the fight visibly draining out of him. He let out a long, weary sigh. "All right, Tony," he said, his voice heavy with resignation and a sliver of trepidation. "Gojo, I hope you both know what you're doing, because I really don't." The regeneration cradle was already connected to the lab's power systems. All Banner had to do now was interface it with their computers and initiate the final stages of the body's physical completion. With a few quick, practiced movements, he connected the necessary wires and, after a moment's hesitation, activated the controls to open the cradle. The translucent chamber hissed and slid open, revealing the incomplete, but undeniably advanced, synthetic form within. Without further ceremony, Gojo stepped forward and carefully placed the Mind Stone into the designated indentation on the synthetic being's forehead. The moment the stone made contact, an intricate network of glowing yellow lines, like veins of pure energy, spread rapidly across the body's surface. The body within the cradle began to visibly change, tissues knitting together, systems activating, the form rapidly generating and completing itself. Banner, monitoring the readouts, nodded slowly. It will take a few hours, at most, for the physical form to fully stabilize and complete its generation, he announced, his voice still tinged with a mixture of awe and apprehension. After that, we can begin the transfer of Jarvis's consciousness into this body. The transfer itself, if my calculations are correct, that should only take a few minutes. So, how was it? Ha 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 ha, it coming to the climax now, next chapter a little bit fight and Jarvis vision birth. After that Sokovia getting in the sky and military gathering in the Sokovia city to get Gojo Satoru. Tomorrow there won't be any chapter as I have exams tomorrow. Should there be a fight between Cap and Stark for Vision Jarvis? Of course Gojo with Tony. Yes, no, and as always thanks for Demikateru, loaded demigod for suggestions. And join my Discord for discussion if you like. Or about sharing your thoughts. You can join my Discord server, URL. Or in short just click in join via invite link in your Discord and enter this code 5Y7UZ2 kilonewtons.